Put it through, Sun Wu ordered. The stern face of Council Representative Dae-hyun Cho appeared on screen. His expression was grim. Captain Kim, the situation has worsened. 3 more stations have been damaged by Leviathan attacks. The Zelvan outpost lost all power for 6 hours. 17 dead. Sun Wu nodded. I've been studying the reports, sir. There's something about their movement patterns. The Council's best scientists have found nothing useful, Dae-hyun interrupted. With respect, sir, Sun Wu continued, I think we're looking at this wrong. These creatures remind me of something from Earth. She pulled up footage of the Leviathans. The massive blue-white energy beings moved with surprising grace through the vacuum. Sun Wu played the recording side by side with videos from Earth's oceans. Look at how they move. The way they hunt, it's like deep-sea predators from our home world. Science Officer Minjun Park leaned forward, eyes widening. She's right. The hunting pattern matches almost exactly. Sun Wu turned back to the Council representative. Sir, I have a plan, but you're not going to like it. 3 days later, Sun Wu stood in front of the full Galactic Council. Representatives from 27 species watched her with various expressions of doubt, curiosity, and in some cases contempt. Your solution is fishing? Asked the Vexrian delegate, their translucent tentacles waving in disbelief. Yes, Sun Wu replied simply. Fishing on a cosmic scale. She explained her plan. Earth's history was full of examples of humans learning to deal with dangerous predators by understanding their behavior. Fishing techniques developed over thousands of years could be adapted. These creatures behave like fish. They're attracted to energy sources. We can use that, create a lure they can't resist, then capture them with a quantum filament net. Most council members laughed or muttered in disbelief, but a few leaned forward with interest. This is ridiculous, hissed Representative Taiho Bei from the Earth Coalition. Captain Kim, you're making humanity look primitive. Sun Wu stood her ground. Sometimes old solutions work best for new problems. Our ancestors learned to fish when they had nothing but sticks and stones. We can do this. The head of the council, a tall, 6-limbed being, raised a hand for quiet. Your species is young, Captain Kim, but you offer a different perspective. While our scientists develop more advanced solutions, you may test your fishing expedition. Returning to her ship, Sun Wu gathered her crew. Engineer Doyen Kang and his team had already started building what they called the Cosmic Lure, a modified fusion reactor designed to emit exactly the energy signature that would attract the Leviathans. My grandfather taught me to fish in Busan Harbor, Sun Wu told her doubtful officers. He always said, to catch a fish, you must think like a fish. We're going to think like space monsters. First Officer Jiho Park looked worried. Captain, if we succeed in attracting these creatures, what's to stop them from destroying us? Sun Wu smiled. That's where the think like a fish part comes in. We won't fight them. We'll understand them. As the Curiosity's Folly headed toward the Arcturus system, where Leviathan sightings had been reported, Sun Wu thought about Earth. Humans had faced challenges at every step of their development. Each time, they had adapted, using whatever tools they had. Now they would fish for space monsters. Days later, their sensors picked up the first signs of Leviathan activity. Sun Wu gave the order, and the cosmic lure was deployed. Now we wait, she said quietly, and see if they bite. The cosmic lure floated in space, its blue-white energy pulsing like a heartbeat. Engineer Doyen Kang watched the readings on his screen with growing worry. The fusion reactor they had modified was working perfectly, too perfectly. Captain, the lure's energy signature is stronger than we planned, Doyen reported, looking up at Captain Sun Wu Kim. It might draw more Leviathans than we can handle. Sun Wu nodded calmly, though her eyes showed concern. Too late to change course now. Keep it running. The bridge of the Curiosity's Folly was quiet. Everyone watched their screens, waiting. Council Representative Taiho Bei stood in the corner, arms crossed. He had joined the mission to report back to Earth about what he called this fishing nonsense. How long until we know if it's working? Taiho asked, breaking the silence. First Officer Jiho Park answered without looking up from his station. Hard to say. In ocean fishing, sometimes you wait hours for a bite. We don't have hours, Taiho snapped. The Council gave you 3 days to prove your theory. 1 day is already gone. Sunwoo was about to reply when alarms started blaring across the bridge. Science Officer Minjun's eyes widened as he checked his readings. "Captain, something's coming." The main screen showed empty space, then a ripple like water disturbed by wind. Suddenly a massive shape appeared, glowing blue-white, moving with slow grace. Its body was long and snake-like, with fins of pure energy. It was heading straight for the lure. "First Leviathan approaching," Minjun reported, voice steady despite his excitement. "Size estimate, 2 kilometers long." Taeho gasped. "That's bigger than any we've recorded." Sunwoo leaned forward. "Hold positions. Let it take the bait." The creature circled the lure, moving closer with each pass. Its body pulsed with color, blue to white to pale purple. The Curiosity's Folly stayed hidden behind a small moon, observing. Then more alarms sounded. Second Leviathan detected, called out Communications Officer Jinho Lee. "Third, fourth, Captain, we're picking up 7 distinct signatures." Taeho's face paled. 7? The most ever seen together was 3. Sunwoo remained calm. "Phase 1 is working better than expected. Prepare Phase 2. Phase 2 was the truly risky part, deploying the quantum filament tether. Developed for mining operations, the nearly unbreakable line had been modified to capture one of the creatures. "Doyon status on the quantum tether?" "Ready, Captain." "But with 7 of them out there." Sunwoo finished his thought. "We need to pick our target. Carefully." They watched as the Leviathans swarmed around the lure. The smallest one, still over a kilometer long, seemed the most aggressive, pushing past the others. "That one," Sunwoo decided. "Prepare to deploy the tether." The tether launcher was ready. Sunwoo gave the order, and the quantum filament shot out from the ship, heading toward the smallest Leviathan. The filament wrapped around the creature's middle section, cinching tight. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Leviathan realized it was caught. The bridge shook violently as the creature thrashed. Warning lights flashed across every console. The quantum tether held, but the ship's engines strained to keep position. "Full power to stabilizers," Sunwoo ordered. Captain Sunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the Earth research ship Curiosity's Folly, watching the stars through the viewport. The year was 2157, and humanity had spread to several star systems, but they were still newcomers in the Galactic Council, where older alien races looked down on them. "Captain, incoming message from Council headquarters," called out Communications Officer Jinho Lee. Sunwoo sighed. The Council rarely had good news these days, not since the celestial Leviathans had appeared. These massive creatures traveled through space, feeding on energy. They had been attacking ships and space stations along major trade routes for months now. The advanced alien races had tried everything: energy weapons, force fields, even negotiation attempts. Nothing worked. Taeho grabbed a railing to stay upright. "This is madness. Cut it loose before it tears us apart." "No," Sunwoo said firmly. "This is fishing. Doyon, give it some slack." Doyon looked confused, but followed orders. The tether released slightly, and the thrashing lessened. "Now pull gently," Sunwoo commanded, just enough to maintain tension. The ship's engines hummed as they carefully pulled on the tether. The Leviathan continued to struggle, but with less violence. "It's working," whispered Jiho in amazement. Then, the creature did something unexpected. It released a burst of energy that traveled along the tether. The ship's power flickered. "It's sending some kind of signal," Minjun shouted. "To the other Leviathans?" asked Jiho. Minjun shook his head. "No, somewhere else. Something much bigger is responding." The sensors beeped urgently as a new reading appeared at the edge of their range. "This signature dwarfed all the others, Captain," Jinho said, voice trembling slightly. "There's something else coming, something massive." Sunwoo looked at the readings, then at her crew. "Looks like we've caught the attention of something bigger than we expected." Taeho stared at the screen in horror. "What have you done? You've called the parent." Sunwoo's eyes narrowed with determination. "No, Representative, we've found exactly what we were looking for. Phase 3 begins now." The massive new Leviathan approached slowly, its body glowing with deep blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The crew of the Curiosity's Folly watched in silence as their sensors struggled to measure its size. 15 kilometers at least, Minjun said quietly. Maybe larger. Taiho backed away from the view screen. Cut the tether. Now, before that thing reaches us. Sunwoo shook her head. No. This is what we came for. The smaller Leviathan they had caught was still connected to their ship by the quantum filament. It had stopped thrashing and now seemed to be waiting. The other 6 Leviathans moved aside, creating a path for the giant newcomer. What do we call that one? Jiho asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The old one, Sunwoo replied. Every fishing story has an old one. The biggest catch that no one believes exists. The ship trembled slightly as the giant creature's energy field touched the edges of their sensors. Lights flickered across the bridge. Captain, Doyen called from his station. The quantum tether is holding, but our power systems are struggling. That thing is putting out energy waves I've never seen before. Sunwoo tapped her console. All hands prepare for Phase 3. Phase 3 was the riskiest part of Sunwoo's plan. They had built a special device, a quantum resonance communicator. If it worked, they might be able to establish basic communication with the creatures. Minjun, is the QRC ready? The science officer nodded. Ready, Captain. But we don't know how the Leviathans will react. That's true of all first contact situations, Sunwoo said. Deploy it. A small probe detached from the Curiosity's Folly and drifted along the quantum tether toward the captured Leviathan. The probe began emitting a pattern of energy pulses, simple mathematical sequences designed to demonstrate intelligence. The smaller Leviathan's glow changed, shifting from blue to purple. It seemed to be studying the probe. It's responding, Minjun shouted. The energy patterns are changing in a clear sequence. Sunwoo leaned forward. Can we understand it? It's mathematics, Minjun said, excitement in his voice. Prime numbers, then Fibonacci sequence. It's answering us. Taiho stared, in disbelief. These energy monsters understand math. They're not monsters, Sunwoo said firmly. They're intelligent beings. We just needed to speak their language. The bridge fell silent as the probe continued its exchange with the Leviathan. Then the giant, old one moved closer. Its massive body dwarfed their ship, making it feel tiny and fragile. Captain, Jinho said nervously, the big one is sending energy patterns too, much more complex ones. The old one's body pulsed with brilliant colors. The smaller Leviathans gathered around it, their own bodies changing to match its rhythm. They're communicating with each other, Minjun realized. This is some kind of meeting. Sunwoo smiled. Or a negotiation. Minjun, can we adapt our signals to respond to the old one? I think so, but a sudden jolt rocked the ship. The quantum tether grew taut as the captured Leviathan pulled hard. It's trying to break free, Doyen shouted. Sunwoo made a quick decision. Release it. What? Taiho protested. That was our only connection. We don't need it anymore, Sunwoo said calmly. We've proven they're intelligent. Now we need to show respect. Doyen pressed a control, and the quantum tether detached from their ship. The freed Leviathan didn't flee. Instead, it moved closer to the old one, its body changing color as if reporting. The old one's glow intensified. The probe they had sent drifted back toward the ship, surrounded by a gentle energy field. Captain, Minjun said in wonder, the E. Probe's memory banks are filled with new data. The old one gave us something. Sunwoo nodded. Download it all, carefully. As the data streamed into their computers, patterns began to emerge. Star maps, energy currents in space, migration routes. They're showing us where they're going, Sunwoo said quietly, and why they've been crossing through Council space. The maps revealed invisible energy streams that flowed through the galaxy, currents the Leviathans followed like rivers. Many of these currents passed directly through established trade routes. They're not attacking ships, Jiho realized. They're following their natural paths. Our ships are just in the way. Sunwoo looked at Taiho, whose face showed a mixture of disbelief and wonder. Representative, please contact the Council. Tell them we need to reroute shipping lanes by just a few light years in certain sectors. The Leviathans have given us their migration map. The old one moved away slowly, the smaller Leviathans following. Before they vanished, the massive creature turned, its body flashing one last pattern. "What did it say?" Sunwoo asked. Minjun looked up from his console, smiling. "If I'm translating correctly, good fishing." The journey back to Galactic Council headquarters was tense. Representative Taiho Bei spent most of his time reviewing the data from the Leviathans, his earlier skepticism replaced by cautious wonder. Captain Sunwoo Kim prepared her report, knowing that what they proposed would face strong opposition. "The shipping companies won't like changing their routes," Jiho said as they approached the council station. "Some of these changes will add days to their journeys." Sunwoo nodded. "But the alternative is continued attacks. The Leviathans aren't going to change paths they've followed for thousands of years." The Curiosity's Folly docked at the massive space station that served as the Council's headquarters. Representatives from 27 species were gathering for an emergency session to hear their findings. As they walked through the station's corridors, Sunwoo noticed the stairs. News of their contact with the Leviathans had spread quickly. Some aliens looked at the humans with new respect, others with suspicion. "They're not used to humans solving problems the Council's best scientists couldn't," Minjun whispered. The council chamber was a large circular room with rising tiers of seats. The human delegation seemed small as they took their place in the center. Sunwoo stood beside Science Officer Minjun, who would present their data. The head counselor, a tall, six-limbed being named Zor, called the session to order. "Captain Kim, we understand you have made contact with the Celestial Leviathans. Please share your findings." Sunwoo stepped forward. "Counselors, what we discovered changes everything we thought about these beings. They are not attacking our ships and stations. They are simply traveling along energy currents that have existed in our galaxy for millions of years." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A representative from the Vexrian Empire stood up, their translucent tentacles waving in agitation. "Are we to believe these creatures are innocent? They have destroyed ships and killed hundreds." "They did not understand that we were intelligent," Sunwoo replied calmly. "To them, our ships were obstacles in their path. Once we established communication, they shared their migration routes with us." Minjun activated a holographic display showing the energy currents the Leviathans followed. The currents flowed through space like rivers, crossing through major trade routes in several places. "You see the problem," Sunwoo continued, "and the solution. If we adjust our shipping lanes to avoid these currents, the Leviathans will pass peacefully." An uproar followed. Representatives shouted objections about costs, schedules, and the impossibility of changing routes that had been used for centuries. Taiho Bei surprisingly stood up to support the humans. "I was skeptical too," he admitted, "but I've reviewed the data myself. This plan will work." The debate raged for hours. Sunwoo remained patient, answering questions and explaining their findings again and again. Finally, Zor called for order. "We will put this to a vote," the head counselor announced. As the voting began, Census Officer Jinho's voice came urgently through Sunwoo's communicator. "Captain, we're detecting Leviathan signatures approaching the station." Sunwoo's heart raced. "How many?" "At least 20, including the old one. They'll be here in minutes." The council chamber's main display suddenly showed the approaching Leviathans. Panic erupted as representatives saw the creatures heading directly for the station. "They're attacking," someone shouted. "No," Sunwoo said firmly, raising her voice above the chaos. "They're demonstrating. They want to show us something." Security. Officers rushed in, calling for defensive measures, but Sunwoo convinced Zor to wait. The Leviathans surrounded the station, their massive bodies glowing with patterns of light. Instead of attacking, they began to move in synchronized patterns. "It's a display," Minjun said in wonder, "like a dance." The old one positioned itself directly in front of the station's main viewport, where all could see it. Its body pulsed with complex light patterns. "Can we understand what it's saying?" Zor asked. Minjun worked quickly on his translator. "It's showing us histories, their journeys through the galaxy for thousands of years, long before any of our species achieved space travel." The display continued for nearly an hour. The Leviathans showed migration patterns, feeding grounds, and most importantly, how they had adjusted their routes in the past when natural obstacles appeared. "They're telling us they're willing to compromise too," Sunwoo realized. "They'll adapt some of their paths if we do the same." When the display ended, The Leviathans moved away peacefully. The council chamber was silent, the representatives stunned by what they had witnessed. Zor spoke first. "I believe we should reconsider our vote. Captain Kim's plan may indeed be the best solution." Sun Wu looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives who had dismissed her primitive fishing expedition days earlier. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the oldest methods work best for the newest problems. My ancestors learned to work with the ocean rather than fight against it. We can do the same with the galaxy." The council voted unanimously to implement the new shipping routes. 6 months had passed since the council approved the new shipping routes. Captain Sun Wu Kim stood on the observation deck of the newly built Harmony Station, watching as a group of Leviathans moved peacefully through the energy current that passed nearby. The station had been placed here specifically to monitor their migration. "Beautiful, aren't they?" asked Minjun, who had joined her at the viewport. He had been promoted to head science officer of the station after their successful mission. Sun Wu nodded. "I still can't believe how much has changed." And indeed much had changed. The Galactic Council had created a new department, the Celestial Migration Authority. Humans made up nearly half its staff, their unique perspective valued for the first time since joining the Council. "The shipping companies are reporting fewer delays than they feared," Minjun said, checking his tablet. "And there hasn't been a single Leviathan incident in 4 months." "The old one kept its promise," Sun Wu replied with a smile. A small alarm chimed, and both of them turned to the monitoring station where Jinho was working. He had chosen to join the CMA with them, rather than return to regular fleet duty. "Right on schedule," Jinho announced. "The Northern Migration Group is approaching." The observation deck filled with staff as word spread. This particular group of Leviathans was special. It included the smaller one they had caught and released during their first encounter. The creatures emerged from the darkness of space, their bodies glowing against the black. They moved in perfect harmony, like dancers following music only they could hear. The staff watched in silence, still awed by their beauty despite seeing them regularly. One Leviathan broke from the group and moved closer to the station. Its pattern of blue-white light pulsed in a now familiar greeting. "Hello, little fisher," Sun Wu said quietly. That was the name they had given to the first Leviathan they had caught. It seemed to recognize the station, or perhaps the humans inside it. Jinho's console beeped again. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The Council representatives want to speak with you before the conference." Sun Wu sighed. The upcoming Galactic Conference would be her 3rd this year. As the new human expert on Leviathan relations, she was in high demand. Today's topic was especially important, expanding the program to include other species that had been misunderstood. "Tell them I'll be there in a moment," she said. Before leaving, she took one last look at little fisher. The Leviathan spun in what almost looked like a playful circle before rejoining its group. Despite not having anything we would recognize as a face, Sun Wu felt it was saying goodbye. An hour later, Sun Wu sat in the conference room with representatives from Earth and 12 other worlds. On the main screen was Council Head Zor, speaking from headquarters. "Captain Kim, your success with the Leviathans has inspired us to reconsider other species we've classified as dangerous," Zor said. "The Council believes your methods might work elsewhere." Representative Teho Bei, now one of Sun Wu's strongest supporters, nodded in agreement. "We've identified 3 other space-dwelling species that might be intelligent rather than simply dangerous." Sun Wu reviewed the data they sent. One species in particular caught her attention, crystal-like beings that formed in asteroid fields and had destroyed mining operations. "This looks promising," she said. "I'll need a new team, and a better ship this time." "You'll have whatever you need," Zor promised. "The new understanding is being prepared for you, our newest research vessel." Later that day, Sun Wu walked through the station's garden area, a space designed to remind the staff of their homeworlds. The Earth section had small trees and a pond with fish, real fish from Earth's oceans. She sat by the pond, watching the fish swim. A shadow fell across her and she looked up to see Doyun, who had been promoted to chief engineer of the station. "Thinking about the new mission?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Yes, it's strange. When we first encountered the Leviathans. The other species thought our fishing approach was primitive. Now they're asking us to lead the way. Doyon smiled. My grandmother used to tell me old Korean stories about people who could speak with animals. I never thought I'd become one of those people, except with space creatures instead. Sunwoo laughed. I don't think any of our ancestors imagined cosmic fishing becoming a diplomatic skill. As they talked, a message arrived from Earth. Sunwoo opened it and read quickly, her eyes widening. What is it? Doyon asked. The Earth Council has created a new position, Interspecies Communication Director. They're offering it to me. She looked up at him. This would mean working with all newly discovered species, not just the Leviathans. Doyon nodded thoughtfully. So, humanity goes from being the Council's newcomers to leading the way in how we all speak to other forms of life. All because you thought of fishing instead of fighting. Outside the viewport, the stars shone steadily. Somewhere out there, the Leviathans continued their ancient migrations, no longer feared but welcomed, and other species waited to be understood, rather than conquered. Sunwoo made her decision. Tell the crew of the new understanding to prepare for departure. We have more fishing to do.